Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and we are here today to speak about the workplace and the future of work, but not just necessarily how we will be working, but the tools that we'll be using to do it, whether that be from the HR perspective, the accounting perspective, interaction perspective, project management, you name it. We're here to talk about the future of work today. This is an area that has continued to evolve over the past 2 decades. Little do we know, we used to just call it tools, platforms, services. Now it is all considered the future of work as we're looking at how things have changed in 2020, leading us here into this next decade ahead, and how that will continue to progress over the years to come and reshape how we look at workplace. And we brought together two of the best and the brightest to do that today. But before we introduce our guests, a big thank you to you, our audience, for tuning in. If you're liking what you hear today, make sure you click subscribe, give us a share, check out the archive as well, so you can hear not just more about the future of work, but about all the areas of technology, industries, and regions around the world that we speak about and bring the best and the brightest together to share their on-the-ground perspective with each of you, so you're educated to know where to start placing your bets as investors and the opportunity areas to start building as entrepreneurs as well. And if you'd like to be on a show like today as an investor, as we'll be introducing in just a moment, or as an entrepreneur to pitch us your company product or service, do reach out to the team and or myself. We find the right spot for you. Speaking of that team, a big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Let's go ahead and dive in. Jose, welcome back to the show. A little intro and a little background, please.
Thank you, Kyle. Very happy to be on your show once more. So my name is Jose Graca. In essence, today I'm the chairman and CEO of the BizMoney Corporation, also the CEO of the BizMoney TV, which is dedicated to business inclusion, and also advisor for one of the Portuguese venture capital companies. My focus is essentially everything which is related to business inclusion, and we are looking for talent in that area. Myself, I have been handling remote teams because that's the objective that we have today now for more or less like 30 years, and have been using a huge amount of tools. And I'm running a fully decentralized organization for 3 years now of about 50 people, and we are scaling another 50 in the next 6 months. So I am quite experienced in that area. Thank you, Kyle.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jose. And this also brings a great point to today's discussion that many companies and owners or managers have been working with distributed teams for many years. This is not a new concept, as we have been focusing on the idea of globalization and just having more global teams, because there's great talent everywhere. And for some businesses, you need a 24-hour cycle, not just necessarily one time zone. So something to remember for today. However, the tools that we're using have become more commonplace and also more cross-functional as well. So looking forward to hearing how things have changed for you, Jose, here in the last year and a half. But before we continue down that, Noble, welcome back to the show. A little intro and a little background, please.
Hey, Kyle, everybody. My name is Noble Dracone. I'm the managing partner of Dracone Capital Partners. I'm also the author of the books Winning the Trading Game and Trade Like a Pro. I've been involved in, I guess I'm the president of WorkTech Games as well, which we do more than games. We focus on augmented reality and virtual reality. And we've got a deep, extensive expanse in how remote working connects people together and how augmented reality or virtual reality makes that happen. Overall, I'm excited to be here and just look forward to talking about the topic.
Wonderful. Noble, that was the shortest intro you've given to date, but nonetheless, welcome back to the show, my friend. It's an absolute pleasure. Last but not least, the Grandmaster of Artificial Intelligence himself. It wouldn't be Monday without Gary joining myself here on VCTV. So it feels like it's a great week already. Here we are kicking it off. Gary, a little intro, a little background.
Yeah, no, great to see you. And I didn't recognize Jose without a hat. I've done that with the Yankees hat. I don't know who it is. You know what I mean? So it's great. Anyhow, my name's Gary Fowler, and I'm a serial entrepreneur. Done 17 companies. was on the original management team of Click Software, company from Haifa, Israel, brought to the U.S., sold to Salesforce for 1.35 billion. And of course, I'm into the remote work tech, HR tech environment. I am the co-founder of Viva, which is a unicorn in the HR tech space, an AI enabled HR tech company. I love artificial intelligence and I love quantum. Kyle, I have an article in quantum networks coming out in cognitive cloud computing coming out here in the next week or so. So I started to dive in those areas because of you and Noble and Jose and all the ideas we get here at VCTV. So I'm an investor. I invest primarily in seed stage companies personally, but I also have done recently some later stage investments, in fact, last week, and love space tech and areas around that also. So great to be here.
Wonderful. And thank you all for.
I forgot. I am the CEO, co-founder, and president of Get Shit Done Venture Studios, a premier AI venture studios.
Wonderful. And thank you very much all for joining today. Very exciting to dive into today's topic. Again, the future of work, looking at how technology over the last few years has really made its way into the workforce, and more particularly over the last year, how some of those platforms, some of those technologies, and some of those services that we're using have really redefined how we look at the workplace, whether it's physical or virtual, and how those have increased efficiency as well. So would love to hear from each of you how things have changed for you within your organizations, or as investors, how you have started to see the landscape of future of work change over the last year as we come here into 2021. Jose, let's kick it off with you.
I think I have one word for that comparable to what it was 30 years ago and today. It's called speed. So what you see today is that everything is more or less, I would say, almost instant, right? Instant messages, instant video conference call, instant document sharing. So instant reports. We are coming now to what I call instant accounting. It's one of the things we have inside BizMoney. I think that's quite unique because I was an accountant for some time. One of my first businesses was an accounting office. So I know a lot of stuff about that. And the issue is that accounting is always delayed. A normal accounting is always X amount of months delayed, whatever you do. Now, instant accounting is, I would say, very, very unique nowadays. Okay. And so that speed and that instance means that you can make decisions on the spot and very fast. And a company that was 30 years ago running, was making decisions partially on data that it would get that day, but a huge amount of data that was from the past. And today, you don't make decisions yet. You still have that data, but what I always say is that the latest data is actual and can be used. Now let's go to the workforce itself. Now compare it like this. In the past, 30 years ago, you would be lucky if you had a mobile phone. So you had a fixed phone and you could not always talk to somebody. In some cases, you would have what we call a bulletin board service. Now, nobody knows about that anymore about it. But a bulletin board service is basically look at it like a file sharing area, right? But you plug in with a modem that makes a funny sound, takes an X amount of time. And for contracts and all these things, fax machine is not at all as we think. It got, I think, 6 or 7 years ago, it got from the market. Still is in use in some countries. But fax machine was your daily activity because that was something that was signed and you could use to close those deals and fix contracts. I remember having a team of 50 salespeople that I was managing in one of the ventures that I had. And we were running the whole day with fax machine because they were, every time they had an order, they would need to find a place to send us a fax so that we could process that order and logistics would be able to shift it out the next day. Now, all that, is completely different. If we go 2010, 10 years ago, all that was already online. But it was at primer stage. Today, you have a full integrated system. Now look at the workforce. Workforce is like this. You are in constant contact with any of these devices and any of these mediums, constantly. So your workforce today doesn't have the need to be in the office. If you're talking about office, it can be anywhere. The productivity, I can even say, at home normally is higher than it is at the office, because at the office you get more distraction. You get into a cubicle and you get a lot of distraction still. At home, you can have some distraction, but at the end of the day, you have goals to achieve. And that's how you manage remote teams. Remote teams, what you do is you make yearly goals, monthly goals, weekly goals. It's more like sprints, right? And you need to achieve those sprints.
So Jose, I want to challenge you for just a second. So I love the point of productivity. Bless you, Noble. I love the point of productivity. However, I think many would actually feel potentially opposite. And the key thing here is home versus, remote space and the office, right? Those are three very different things, just to clarify, right? Remote space or flexible space, maybe a coffee shop and maybe a co-working space, wherever someone feels comfortable for themselves. And then an office space is your typical is your general office space. But home you can have many distractions, especially in the past year. We've seen that, right, with families and the like being in the mix, and that's again something people have to adjust to. So I want to challenge: is home really that much more productive, or did I misunderstand how you were referencing home and using flexible space?
Home is definitely more productive. Sounds a little bit strange, but for the statistics and the research that we have done, exactly the opposite that we were expecting came out, that people work, for some reason, they work more hours at home. And they take less, let's say, breaks.
So I'm going to counter that one more time. I'm sorry I'm interrupting. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because here's a big asterisk in that. You're absolutely right. We work more at home because guess what? We don't have to commute, in all fairness, right? On the second part, we also can take more breaks. We can also take more breaks, or we can work longer because we don't have to leave. So is that really a good thing?
Well, I don't know if it's a good thing. I just look at the data. The data is that for some reason people don't take the break. They get involved into their work, and until they get that goal done, for some reason they don't take a break. And at the office, I don't know why. A break is a break, right? And you go for the break. And even your work is not finished, or the goal is not achieved, you go for the break. And at home, for some reason, it works different. And I tell you, I'm very happy to have all my stuff completely decentralized since 2018, right? And definitely, I'm not. I have no intention at all to take any office in any part of the world. We have an office because we must, legal-wise. We need to have a place, right? But if it would not be like that, I would not take an office. We have people working in 16 countries today. So, and it doesn't matter. You can be on the North Pole as long as you have a mobile phone.
Santa does it every year.
Santa does it every year.
That's fine for me, right? So this is how it works today. And I think also for employers brings a huge plus. Let me put it like this. It's like, 30 years ago, for you to recruit somebody, right, would be a headache. Take a long time. Today, you can onboard somebody in the most cases 30 days, very fast. And at the same time, you can pick out the best of the best. Now, I had a company in India for like 6 years. Okay, we owned a company there, and we did a huge amount of course, software development. And only in India, I suddenly saw that what is the difference between living in a small country, okay, small country is like 10, 15 million people, right, and having access to the remote workforce in that country, and what it is to recruit in India, because suddenly you say, wow, this is like, you like in a week time, you have like hundreds of people on your job, right? And if you're in a small country, you have like a few, but it's not comparable. The capacity that you have to pick out the best talent, you know, is huge. Now, look at it on a global scale. You know, I'm doing this by purpose, right? I'm going from small to India, you know, which is 1.5 billion more or less. And now look at it on a global scale. Now, suddenly today you are recruiting on a global scale. So you have 7.6 billion people to select from, right? And you know that from those 7.6 billion, 430 million are unemployed permanently, right? So this is what you know. So the offer that you have, you know, is nothing comparable. You don't need to be you don't need to take people from one country. So if you have a company in the US, you know, you can recruit people from anywhere in the world. So it's not a must that it must be from the US.
Right. Well, and there's great talent everywhere, to your point. And thank you so much, Jose, and taking my challenges as well there. I appreciate it. Great responses. And Noble, to you, I mean, current state, what are you seeing? How have things changed? Similar to Jose, you've also worked with many remote teams as well and organizations. So how have things changed for you, or how are you seeing things today?
So there's two levels, right? It's how things operate with you personally, and then how you see the companies that you want to invest that are coming to you. So, you know, ever since the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, I've worked remote, you know, and that came out in the late 90s. You know, we used Elance, we used Kindle, we used Upwork, we used eWork, all these companies that were already giving you a talent pool outside of your local area that also was giving those people a greater than minimum wage job in their local economy. You know, you're paying a couple $100, $500, whereas per month, a regular job in some of these countries was $200 to $500 for the whole month. So, you know, we already were headed in this direction of remote working, but there's always the double-edged sword. It ends up forcing people to work 24 hours a day. Right now, I've got 3 different remote teams. One group in the Philippines, another group in Ukraine, another group that I work with in South America. They're all operating on different time zones. And so it's a mixture of productivity as well as also trying to find an equilibrium in that space. How do you manage a 24-hour workday? You know, and that's kind of what has been driven into people. Regardless of whether they wanted to or not, particularly now with the pandemic and its persistence, right? When it started last March and people had to shelter in place, there was always this assumption in a few months it would kind of die down, we'll be able to go back out. And every time people have tried to go back to normalcy, there's been spikes and increases. But I think that this time may be different with the idea that the vaccine is starting to proliferate in different places and areas. And so remote working is going to look different in 2021 in a lot of aspects. And I don't think the first half, but the second half, when we start seeing stabilization. And so we've been looking at different ways that companies are starting to both mitigate those issues as well as facilitate. People need people. It's unavoidable. It's great to be able to work remotely, but part of productivity comes from water cooler talk and being able to bounce ideas off of, you know, the lady or the guy in the cubicle next door over to help you kind of break through your mental blocks. And that's not occurring now. You know, people are not getting new, fresh ideas and new, fresh information. And so what we've seen in a few different trends is that companies and corporations are starting to look closer and closer to the WeWork model of co-working spaces and getting at least some parts of their teams to meet 1 or 2 days out of the week in these little facilities. You know, it's unfortunate that WeWork imploded on itself at the time it did, because it's going to find that more and more places are going to pop up that are going to provide these co-working spaces so that corporations, like to Jose's point, we need an address, but do we really need a big facility? Most companies are starting to find that they're putting people in these remote locations, going from the full mega complex to maybe 15 or 16 different office suites in different areas, so people can just meet up in 1-2 times a week, maybe take a meeting, maybe do a group meeting and do remote. but that's how you foment positivity.
Right.
One interesting thing that we've noticed, particularly because our focus is in virtual reality, augmented reality, is that alt space is actually making a comeback. I was invited twice this last week to be a speaker in alt space. And if you're not familiar with alt space, it's a virtual reality environment that was a standalone company that was eventually acquired by Microsoft that allows people almost like a second life phenomena to meet, interact. People are doing concerts, people are doing meetings. Now people are throwing expos in these virtual reality spaces. And I believe that this is really an additional trend to getting people to interact, that virtual reality may have found its use case, that maybe people want to sit down and go to a local, quote unquote, cafe that's in alt space. Maybe they want to be able to go in and do the water cooler talk online on the goggles for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, because those break times really allow for actual more productivity. They allow people to rest their minds, noodle over problems, and then be able to come back with fresh eyes. The idea that the persistence of data stream to both the employee aspect of the person working with you and the life aspect, right? Because the screen times have gone crazy. You play video games online, and then you turn around and do work online, and then you're texting and messaging everybody on the phone or online. It's at some point you need a break. So one of the cool features that I noticed that came with a recent Kindle upgrade at home was that you can just shut down the entire Wi-Fi for your house for 30 minutes or an hour. And I think people are going to start stealing back more time. So what do we do as entrepreneurs to fill that time? Games have exploded in this space where people are playing more productivity games, figuring out ways to interact individually. And people are still, even with the idea of overall remote work, are still finding ways to get together just to chat, whether Slack, whether Telegram. I've never used Telegram more than I've ever used it now, to find that downtime to talk to people. So I think the lifestyle or where we're headed with this remote working, there's going to be shorter work weeks. It has to be. Europe has already been playing around with it for years. Why work 5 8-hour days when you work 4 10-hour days? As well as productivity being more important than ever. Getting how you get the work done is not as important as getting the work done on time. So these things are going to start running into the gestalt, and we've been bit by bit seeing it. But I think there's an intersection.
So switching gears, because there is a lot that could change or should change or hopefully will change. But what are some of the areas as investors you're looking at making investments in or see as areas of opportunity that should be built over the next year and then some to drive this change in the workplace as well? Because yes, we do see a number of corporations, so big corporations such as Dell and others that are moving towards flexible workspaces. Again, not necessarily co-working, not full-time offices, while we also have the Googles of the world, and specifically Google themselves snatching up a ton of real estate to expand their footprint as well in both an office and a flexible space. But again, on the services side and the product side, we're seeing more products come to light to make things a little bit more easier, to offer these breaks, to offer gamification, to offer efficiency so that work is focused on versus consumed 24/7. So to both of you, and Jose, let's start with you on this. Where do you see the areas of opportunity looking ahead for the year that investing and or building opportunities?
So the problem today is the amount of data that you need to process. So the opportunities, the way we look at it, is the way to handle data, that data can execute for you, even autonomously, and give you the results that you make the decisions. That would be a huge step forward, because your time that you have today, right, which is more or less limited. You can't make more than 24 hours a day. You need to sleep 8, and you have an X amount of time to work. So the problem that you're always facing is that the speed that you go today, it's so hectic and it's so time consuming still, that the only way you can free now time and still get more productivity The only way you can go is having machines running and treating that data as much as possible, even autonomously, even with artificial intelligence or business process automation, whatever it is, that you get those results, right? And you basically treat it. And it can also be managing of stuff. You know, there are, look, a screen recording, right, is not unique. There are a lot of remote workers work with, in their laptops, they work with screen recording, right? From time to time, you have a picture or whatever it is, and they figure out and they check your connections. Okay, so that happens. We don't do that internally because we feel that we like to work with sprints and people need to be responsible, right? But a lot of organizations do that. The problem is, are you going to look at those screens every day? Are you going to engage somebody to look at those screens? Right? There is no time to look at those screens. Or so you need to have software that is able to take that data, right, and come up with some red flags, you know, that you make some decisions as an example, right? But there's so many alternatives, and that can go to your messenger and it can go to your documents. Today, your documentation, for example, the way we have it working is that we know exactly who opened what, when, and what they did and what they changed. We have version control almost on everything. We can go back up to 1 year, right? So there's endless. Now, imagine that you would do that, you know, by yourself or with a workforce. Not possible. So the way we at BizMoney look at, and by the way, I want to say that we are building this BizMoney fund up, okay, and it's going quite nice. And we're going to invest money this year. And also we are looking for technologies that in essence can be an add-on for the small and micro companies, but that is enabling them to speed up all the processes, exactly how we are talking here.
So I was going to say, just to kind of add to that, Kyle, Jose, is that where we're looking at is virtual reality, right? I think there's two components, right? Virtual reality, augmented reality. The idea of eyewear now being the way to connect people, 100%. You know, we have a gaming company that focuses on AR. So we believe that more and more people are going to want to use that kind of distance but close type of technology. So we've been looking at more headsets. We've been looking at holographic technology, and then content aggregation is huge. Being, you know, you hit the nail on the head, Jose, when you're talking about there's so many forms of data. There's like 5 different communication apps that people prefer to use that need to be aggregated, from Signal to Telegram to WhatsApp. I have people communicating with me on their most favorite, you know, tool that they like, Trello, you know, and yet one unifying console that would be designed to show all this in one place would be a great place to invest in. So I'm definitely looking for that particular super use case. Also with the idea that we're looking more and more at altcoins, with the idea that more companies, and I don't know if you guys are familiar, but Akon has a token that's starting to be accepted throughout Africa for payroll payments. People are starting to really, the singer, if you guys are familiar, but people are starting to realize that it doesn't always have to be cash in order to pay people if you can give them something of value. And altcoins and cell phone minutes and the like are starting to become new forms of payment processing in countries in which banking just has had almost no ability to operate, because it's great to be able to create these remote work opportunities globally, but how do you pay people? You know, for a long time, people who we worked with in India couldn't accept PayPal, you know, for whatever reason, or they couldn't accept. And so the idea that blockchain has become the kind of preferred payment for a global economy, we've dived deep into various different DeFi opportunities, as well as opportunities to create some kind of payment structure, invest in payment structures that allow for crypto and altcoins to be utilized instead of cash for payment. So those are kind of ideas that we really kind of narrowed down in on and found some real fun opportunities.
Absolutely, Noble and Jose. And as we look forward here to the decade ahead? I mean, you mentioned decentralized finance as a huge area. We saw Zap just release a new feature with Visa and doing instant real-time payments. Noble, do you see this as a thing that is going to continue to rise, or do you see this just as an instant fad?
No, I think this is the lockdown. That, you know, the idea of companies creating loyalty points. Listen, airline companies have a monopoly on it for almost 30 years. You got loyalty and reward points, and you would be able to exchange them in for flight. Now companies are starting to realize that it's better than just giving a coupon. It's why not make it an all-in-one inclusive payment processing solution? Unfortunately, you know, we see what happened with Jack Ma. He ended up running afoul of regulators trying to lump everything in one big clump. But companies are starting to understand that if you already have the people, you already have the eyeballs, why aren't you processing your own payments on your own system with your own currency to get them to continue to be loyal to you?
Jose, same question to you. I mean, decentralized finance and some of those more distributed platforms, do you see those again as a rising trend and thing here for 2021, or just a blip on the map?
I don't see it as a rising trend. I see it as a reality that today is already in place, and there is no other way that you can solve this, because we put it like this: we still have a lot of problems to get something which should be very simple, which is basically moving cash from one country to another, and for some reason. A lot of banks don't communicate with each other, or it takes a huge amount of time, even with the SWIFT system. Or in Europe, you have SEPA, so it's instant, almost instant in the same day, or at least in the next morning you have it on your account. So, and you can go to any European country. And in the US, you know, between the states, it's also not a problem because you have this ACH number. But if you suddenly you want to go to a less common country, yeah, it's not so easy, because if you want to send some money to, let's say, some African countries as an example, then yes, it's not the same. So you need to go to a what they call, let's call the Western Union or something similar, a money transfer company, and quite expensive and quite costly. Although today you can do it online, which you swipe your card, so you don't need to go physically to the office. But still, you know, this should be much easier. What I can tell you is that we have foreseen that inside BizMoney itself, and we have what we call instant payments. Right, there is no time delay. It means that on the second, it's there from one account to the other, and supported with blockchain in the background. So for us, it makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. So, gentlemen, big question of the day. You've got one investment to make in 2020 to bet on for the future of work in 2029. What is the one bet or the one key specific area that you're putting your capital looking ahead for 8 years? Noble.
Well, augmented reality. I believe that the integration and the way visual science is at, that's why we have patents for our gaming company, and that's why we've doubled down on almost all aspects. The science, we're no longer going to be sitting here looking at screens to communicate with one another. So the micro screen and the augmented reality are the only place to be, just in general, not just remote work, but for how we interact as a new cell phone.
Jose.
For me, it would be intelligent housing. And when I say intelligent housing, that would be that, more or less what Noble said, that there is no need for you to have a keyboard or a screen or whatever it is. It's just by command. And, you know, and you can have it whatever you want to have it. So it can be projected any place. It's not, look, when you look at I always say that people always look at these science fiction movies, right? And they think, oh, this is so far, they think this is so far away, this is not possible, blah, blah, blah. But in essence, they forget that these movie directors, they do research. And those movies are based on effective research, how it's more or less probably going to be. It's not by accident. So when you look at an SF movie, right? A lot of that stuff that's there, is really going to happen. So, you better watch out for that. So what I say is that if you look at the movies today of science fiction, you see that, basically in some cases still they have screens, but in essence, there are no screens, right? You have to, and you're interacting, and that projection, it can be in any place. So intelligent housing for me, definitely, when I'm technology for intelligent housing and no screen displays, could be what Noble said, virtual reality, that's fine. Projectors, that's the future.
I love it. So gentlemen, as we come to closing thoughts here, thank you, Jose. And one of the things you're mentioning, that's why I watch Iron Man. I'm excited. I know that that's coming at some point. Whether we have our own Iron Man suits is another thing, but the interaction, all jokes aside, the interaction, the connection, those efficiencies, those smart assistants that Gary talks so much about as well. These are all things coming to life here sooner than later. Maybe not in its full, entertainment view, to your point, but they are coming in stepping stones and much further advanced than we know. So with that, I want to come to each of you for closing thoughts and where you can be found online to continue the conversation around the future of work. And I know, Jose, this is a big area Biz Money focuses on, and We Are Games and GSDV. So if you can, Jose, just closing thoughts and where you can be found as people want to continue the conversation.
My closing thoughts goes to having all that talent that we have out there becoming, being able to get to the market, because I know by experience, but not only by experience, by data, that unfortunately 99% of people that have a dream, and that's for 20% of global population, they are not able to fulfill their dream, which is freedom of choice and financial freedom. And that's my closing thought, and that's what I would like to see. So you can find me on LinkedIn, because it's my preferred network. Just look for Jose Grasa, or put in Biz Money, or just come here to VCTV and click on that button. It's quite easy. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you, Jose. Gary, I want to come to you next. Closing thoughts on where the future of work evolves into here as we look at this next decade ahead, whether it be smart assistants, whether it's driven by AI, as you and I have spoken so many times about here on VCTV. But what are your closing thoughts as where the future of work goes around technology? And then where can everyone find you and GSDV when it comes to wanting to connect in?
Yeah, I mean, the situation is, so all of the above, Kyle, look at where we are. We have employees around the world, and typically we would have employee reviews once a year. So being able to get the access immediately to figure out how to course correct, to be able to make that amazing asset viable is incredible. And so you can reach me, Gary Fowler, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Gary at gsdvs.com. I'd be happy, and of course, here on VCTV. We have a great asset in HR. We need to be able to manage that asset better and to be able to respond very, very quickly. It's not about 6 months, it's a moment's notice. So that's where we are. So I could talk days about HR tech. Sorry, I got knocked off. My computer rebooted. Stuff happened,
Hey, no worries. This is something we all have to deal with in the future of work as it is. We're working from home. We're working on our own devices. Security is an issue, but also, technical support is another thing we didn't get into today's conversation. But if your computer crashes, guess what? That's on you at this point. You don't have a technical department around you to help and fix those types of things. So no stress, Gary. We're glad you're here as always. We'll look forward to seeing you again tomorrow on more VCTV. And with that, Noble, close us out. Closing thoughts, and then also where you can be found online.
Easy to find me. I'm on LinkedIn. You can also do my last name, @Dracone, on Twitter. Just a closing thought is that the future is now. People keep waiting for some far off moment, but all the technology is being made, and we haven't talked clean energy and remote work. I mean, there's all the things that are happening right now around you is a whirlwind of opportunity, and it's literally an ocean. So you kind of pick where you're going to go and ride that wave as long as you can.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all very much, Noble, Jose, Gary, for your thoughts and insights around today's discussion of the future of work, HR tech and work tech as well. Really excited for not only the thoughts and insights, but also your experiences as both business operators and investors in this space as well. So thank you for sharing that. And to your audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up, click share. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Noble, Gary, and Jose. And check out the archive as well to learn more about the future of work and many other areas of technology industries and regions around the world as we bring together the best and the brightest, as we did today, to share their on-the-ground perspective around each of these areas to help you make the best decisions around future investments and areas of opportunity to start building in as entrepreneurs. And if you'd like to be on a show like today as an investor or as an entrepreneur to pitch us your company, product, or service, do reach out to the team and or myself, and we'll find the right spot for you. Speaking of that team, a big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me everywhere online at Kyle Ellicott, just like all of our speakers today. Make sure you add context when you reach out to all of us, where you heard us, what you would like to continue the conversation about as well. With that, I'm your host. We'll be back here more